10 WWE stars react to Hulk Hogan passing away. Many WWE stars from John Cena to The Undertaker and even The Rock are talking about Hulk Hogan. In a heartbreaking turn of events, wrestling icon Hulk Hogan has passed away, and the WWE universe is reeling. From John Cena and The Undertaker to The Rock, the biggest names in wrestling are speaking out. In this emotional tribute, we dive into the heartfelt reactions from 10 WWE superstars as they remember the legacy, influence, and larger-than-life presence of the Immortal One. If you're a true WWE fan, this is a moment you don't want to miss. The news came like a thunderclap, sudden, surreal, and heavy with heartbreak. Hulk Hogan, the man who defined an era, who transformed wrestling from smoke-filled arenas into sold-out stadiums, was gone. At 71, the Immortal One had taken his final bow. And in that moment, the wrestling world stood still. The first statements came from those closest to him in spirit, men who grew up in his shadow, who followed the trail he blazed and carried it forward with pride. John Cena, who had long been dubbed the face of WWE in his own right, was among the first to post. But it wasn't a tweet, it was a silence. A single image of Hulk Hogan flexing in his red and yellow, captioned with 3 words, "Thank you, brother." Behind the words lay decades of admiration, and underneath it all, the unspoken truth that there would be no John Cena without Hulk Hogan. Hogan didn't just wrestle. He inspired. He created an energy that leapt off the screen, shook the crowd, and rewrote what wrestling meant to the world. For Cena, he was more than a childhood hero, he was the blueprint. Hogan showed the world that charisma mattered as much as power, that a superstar was more than just muscle, it was heart, spirit, connection. It was say your prayers and eat your vitamins. It was an ethos. A mission. Across the country, the reactions kept pouring in. The Undertaker, stoic as ever, offered rare words of emotional transparency. In a somber Instagram video filmed in a dimly lit room, no hat, no gloves, just Mark Calloway, he said, "I've stood across from giants, legends, warriors. But Hulk Hogan, he was wrestling. We all owe him." His voice trembled, just slightly. It was the voice of a man who had seen legends rise and fall, but who knew, Hogan wasn't just another. He was the one. The first larger-than-life superstar who made people believe the impossible. Triple H, now a key executive in WWE, paused an internal meeting at Stamford to address the company staff. Those present later shared that he was visibly emotional. "Everything we do here, this global empire, the stadiums, the media deals, it all started with Hogan. He took wrestling and turned it into pop culture. He gave it color, gave it style, gave it an identity. There was no branding before Hulkamania. There was wrestling, yes. But not the phenomenon. Not the spectacle. Hogan brought that. He was the spectacle." The locker rooms were quieter that day. In Tampa, Roman Reigns, a man who now carries the weight of the industry on his shoulders, sat down in the trainer's room before a house show and simply stared at his boots. An assistant who brought him water said he didn't speak for nearly 10 minutes. Later, when asked what Hogan meant to him, Roman answered, "He gave us the arena. Without him, there's no tribal chief." Just a kid trying to fill a void that Hogan already filled. It wasn't just the biggest stars. It was everyone. From ring announcers to indie hopefuls, from referees to trainers, the story was always the same. Hogan made this possible. But among the most emotional reactions came from The Rock. Dwayne Johnson, the man who once dethroned Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania X8, took to social media and posted a heartfelt video that echoed with personal gratitude. "We shook that ring in Toronto like titans," The Rock said. But what people don't know is what Hogan did backstage. He was gracious. He passed the torch like a legend. That wasn't just a match, it was a moment that defined 2 generations. "I owe him my career." The video ended with The Rock holding up a vintage red and yellow bandana. "Still got this, Hulkster. Still believe in the dream." Fans in the comments didn't just cry. They remembered. Because that's the thing about Hulk Hogan. He was the dream. To millions of kids across the 1980s and 90s, Hogan was Superman without the cape. He was the larger-than-life hero who always got back up, who never quit, who told you that you could be strong, you could be kind, you could be good. He lifted Andre the Giant when no one thought it possible. He faced down monsters and madmen, villains and turncoats, and he never blinked. In doing so, he gave people more than entertainment. He gave them hope. Shawn Michaels, often praised for his own showmanship, posted a single line that hit hard: "Without Hulk, there's no showstopper." Coming from a man known for stealing WrestleMania, it meant the world. Hogan had paved the way not just for main events, but for icons to rise. In NXT, the younger generation paused training. Coaches played a clip from WrestleMania 3. The crowd, over 93,000 strong, roared as Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. Some of those trainees hadn't even been born then. But they felt it. Goosebumps. Tears. Awe. Cody Rhodes, who had recently taken up the banner of finishing stories and carrying his father's legacy, posted an emotional tribute on Twitter: "My dad respected him. I idolized him. My daughter will know who Hulk Hogan was." And in that line, he captured the generational reach of Hogan's legacy. Not just past and present, but future. Even Stone Cold Steve Austin, the anti-hero who redefined the Attitude Era, set aside his rough edges for a moment of truth. In a podcast tribute, he said, "We were different characters, different eras. But let me tell you something, when you talk about wrestling, you start with Hulk Hogan. You put him on the damn Mount Rushmore, front and center. The Texas Rattlesnake doesn't hand out compliments lightly. But Hogan had earned it. Through decades. Through sweat and sacrifice." Back in Orlando, Randy Orton shared a private memory from his early days. "I was just a rookie, still unsure if I belonged. Hogan looked at me one day backstage and said, 'You've got it, kid. Just remember, they come to feel something. Make 'em feel it.' I never forgot that." Hogan didn't just lead in the ring. He led behind the curtain. Always watching. Always giving advice. Always lifting others. And maybe that's what shocked the WWE universe most in his passing, realizing just how many lives he touched. How many careers he jump-started. How many fans he inspired. To the world outside the ropes, Hulk Hogan was a pop culture icon. He starred in movies, sold out arenas, appeared on lunchboxes and action figures. He made wrestling cool. And to those inside the squared circle, he was the patriarch. The godfather of sports entertainment. The man who kicked open the door so everyone else could walk through it. And then there was Edge, one of WWE's most passionate storytellers. In a voice note shared with fans, Edge recounted his childhood. "I used to stand on my bed, wearing a yellow bandana, doing the poses. I had posters of him all over my room. And the first time I shared a locker room with him, I nearly cried. He made me believe. He made all of us believe. And that belief? It's the heart of wrestling. Because for all the slams, the spectacle, the pyro, the promos, wrestling is about belief. And Hulk Hogan made people believe. In good guys. In miracles. In comebacks. In larger-than-life heroes who always answered the call. When the final tribute video aired on Raw, the arena fell silent. A black and white montage played. Real American played softly in the background. Images of Hogan in slow motion, posing, pointing, lifting Andre, hugging Make-A-Wish kids, saluting the crowd. Fans stood, some crying. Grown men wearing Hulkamania shirts held their children close. Chants broke out. "Thank you, Hogan." And then again, louder. "Thank you, Hogan." WWE didn't just lose a legend. They lost the legend. But legends never truly die. They echo through the arenas. They live in the chants. They survive in the superstars they inspired, in the fans they moved, in the industry they elevated. Hulk Hogan wasn't perfect. But this isn't about that. This is about what he gave. What he built. What he became. He was the immortal one. He was wrestling. And though the man may be gone, the legacy? It lives forever. As the tributes from WWE superstars continued to flood in, the emotional wave spread far beyond the ring. Fans across the globe lit candles outside their local arenas. Thousands gathered in front of WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, some in silence, some singing Real American through tears, their voices cracked but unwavering. Street corners in cities like Chicago, Miami, and Tokyo became makeshift memorials as red and yellow merchandise adorned sidewalks like sacred offerings. One sign taped to a pole outside Madison Square Garden read, "Wrestling didn't become wrestling until Hogan dropped the leg." WWE's global fanbase wasn't just mourning a man, they were mourning an era, a feeling, a childhood hero who had transcended the ring and become part of the very fabric of who they were. One father posted a video holding his son on his shoulders, saying, "When I was his age, I believed Hulk Hogan could beat anyone. Now I'm telling him about a man who taught me what it meant to fight with heart." In homes across the world, old pay-per-views were replayed like sacred texts. WrestleMania 3. WrestleMania 6. The Raw where he returned after years away. That unforgettable moment in 2002 when he stood face to face with The Rock and the crowd roared so loud it felt like the earth itself was applauding. People weren't just watching. They were remembering. Because for many, Hulk Hogan was when they fell in love with wrestling. He was their gateway. Their introduction. Their North Star. WWE wasted no time preparing the biggest tribute it had ever crafted. In a rare and emotional joint decision, Vince McMahon, Triple H, and Nick Khan agreed to dedicate an entire episode of Monday Night Raw to the life and legacy of Hulk Hogan. The show opened not with fireworks, but with solemnity. A lone spotlight illuminated the ring. A pair of yellow boots and a red bandana sat in the center. Michael Cole, normally composed, struggled to keep his voice steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we don't mourn a wrestler. We celebrate a legend. A pioneer. A hero. We celebrate Hulk Hogan." From backstage, every WWE superstar, past and present, emerged to the ramp. No gimmicks. No music. Just silence and reverence. Roman Reigns. Randy Orton. Seth Rollins. Becky Lynch. Rey Mysterio. Kevin Owens. They stood shoulder to shoulder, many with tears in their eyes, united not by storyline, but by gratitude. The Undertaker stood in the shadows, head bowed, hands clenched. Even Stone Cold made the trip, nodding silently, his trademark vest swapped for a black suit in Hogan's honor. And then the screen faded to black and white. A 20-minute video tribute played. Set to orchestral music, it chronicled Hulk Hogan's journey from Terry Bollea in Florida to the most recognized name in professional wrestling history. It showed the rise of Hulkamania. The birth of WrestleMania. The slam heard round the world. His rivalries with Roddy Piper, Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior. The shift from red and yellow to the shocking NWO black and white. And finally, the redemption arc. Returning to WWE to a thunderous ovation, reminding everyone why they believed in him in the first place. Interwoven between clips were soundbites from those who knew him best. Ric Flair, holding back tears, said, "There was only one man who could fill a stadium just by saying brother." Hogan didn't just draw money, he drew hearts. Shawn Michaels added, "He was the first true crossover star. He made it okay for kids to wear wrestling shirts to school. He made it cool." Even retired announcer Jim Ross returned to lend his voice. "When Hogan walked into a room, you didn't need music. The air changed. You knew you were in the presence of a phenomenon." Social media had never seen anything like it. The hashtag Thank You Hogan trended #1 worldwide. Sports anchors, Hollywood stars, and even political figures paused to share condolences. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson appeared on national news, his voice full of reverence. He gave so much to all of us. Not just the industry, but our culture. He was American mythology. Logan Paul, now an emerging figure in WWE, posted a raw, heartfelt message. Hogan showed us that charisma matters. That presence can change the world. I never met him, but I felt like I knew him. That's greatness. Outside the squared circle, ESPN aired a retrospective titled The Immortal Era, featuring interviews with sports legends like Mike Tyson and Shaquille O'Neal, each recalling the first time they saw Hogan and how it impacted them. NBA players wore red and yellow warm-up shirts during practice. NFL stars reenacted Hogan's classic poses in the end zone. He had been that big. And yet, the most powerful tribute wasn't flashy. It came from a letter read aloud by his daughter, Brooke Hogan, during a private family service later aired in a WWE documentary tribute. She stood in a chapel, voice cracking as she read. To the world, you were Hulk Hogan. But to me, you were Dad. You taught me to fight, to love, to stand up for myself. You told me to chase the light. And you were the light. The funeral service, while private, was later turned into a special broadcast titled Hulk Hogan, Forever Immortal. It aired on the WWE Network, Peacock, and multiple global platforms. The final shot showed his classic silhouette, bandana, mustache, biceps, superimposed on a sunset with the words, "Heroes live forever. Legends never die. Hulkamania is eternal." In the days that followed, WWE announced a permanent tribute. The main event entrance tunnel at WrestleMania would be named the Hogan Gate, a red and yellow illuminated arch that all future superstars would walk through. And with that, a new tradition was born. From the ashes of loss came a legacy that would never fade. Because Hulk Hogan didn't just change wrestling, he made wrestling what it is today. He brought energy, color, and charisma when the industry needed it most. He showed the world that a wrestler could be a household name. That catchphrases could become gospel. That a single leg drop could echo across generations. His voice, his aura, his presence, none of it is gone. It lives in every roar of the crowd. Every chant of Hogan. Hogan. Every child who flexes in front of a mirror and believes in heroes again. WWE lost its immortal one. But his story is far from over. As long as arenas chant, as long as children dream, as long as fans believe, Hulkamania lives on. They were beginning a legacy movement. In the weeks following the tribute show and the Forever Immortal broadcast, something unexpected began to unfold. Younger WWE stars, those born long after Hulk Hogan's prime, started stepping forward to share how his influence had quietly shaped them too. Braun Breaker, the explosive son of Rick Steiner, posted a video from the WWE Performance Center. Standing in front of a faded Hogan poster pinned to the gym wall, he said, "He made it cool for guys like my dad to chase the dream. But he made it possible for guys like me to live it." Hogan was the bridge. From the old school to this new generation, we all walk across his legacy every time we step through the ropes. That sentiment began to echo across WWE's entire roster. Liv Morgan shared how her brothers used to fight over who got to be Hulk Hogan when they wrestled in the living room. He wasn't just the strongest guy in the room, he was the good guy. He made it okay to be loud, to be bright, to stand for something. Her voice cracked on a livestream as she held up a worn Hulkamania shirt she used to sleep in as a kid. And then there was Dominic Mysterio, a heel in the ring, but human in his tribute. "My dad loved Eddie. But when we weren't watching Latino Heat, we were watching old Hogan tapes. I learned about crowd psychology from Hogan. You learn to control the rhythm. Not with a move, but with a look. A point. A flex. That was magic." Backstage at SmackDown, the conversation around Hulk Hogan had shifted from loss to legacy. Veterans began telling road stories again. Randy Orton, in a candid backstage documentary, recalled a night in Tokyo when Hogan gave him advice over ramen. "Son, when you feel them chanting your name before you even move, don't kill that moment. Let them savor it. Orton smiled. I still do that. Every night. That's the Hogan pause. Even Paul Heyman, WWE's master manipulator and manager of champions, broke from his usual character during a podcast interview. Do I think Hogan was perfect? No. But perfect doesn't sell out arenas. Hogan sold hope. He wasn't just a draw, he was the blueprint for what a draw is supposed to feel like. I'd give anything to have been his advocate in the 80s. The storytelling expanded beyond WWE programming. ESPN released a mini-doc titled The Slam That Shook the World. A 30-minute special dissecting the moment Hogan lifted Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Historians, sportswriters, and even NFL coaches weighed in. One boxing trainer called it the single greatest visual moment in sports entertainment history. Another said that slam had nothing to do with physics. It was pure faith. In schools and wrestling academies across the globe, instructors paused classes to show old Hogan promos. This, one coach said, is what it means to sell a match before you even touch your opponent. Hogan's promos, colorful, electric, unpredictable, became case studies in wrestling charisma. Students mimicked the voice, the cadence, the fire in his eyes. But they also began to understand what was underneath all that showmanship, purpose. Because for all the jokes, the impersonations, the memes, Hogan believed in what he was saying. When he told a generation of kids to eat their vitamins and say their prayers, he meant it. When he faced monsters and giants and told them the power of the Hulkamaniacs would never die, it wasn't a promo, it was gospel. And those kids? They grew up. They became wrestlers. They became writers. Some became doctors, teachers, artists. But all of them, in some way, carried a spark from that red and yellow fire that Hogan lit. Even in pop culture, the Hogan effect was visible. Marvel Studios quietly released a statement acknowledging that their 1980s vision of superheroes was undeniably inspired by wrestling icons like Hulk Hogan, larger-than-life men with mythic muscles, boundless charisma, and deeply human hearts. And in a surprise moment during a late-night talk show, Chris Hemsworth revealed that his new training regimen was modeled after Hogan's 1987 peak. We're not just building a physique, he said. We're honoring a myth. And myth was exactly what Hogan had become. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a moment, a pulse in wrestling history that never stopped echoing. That first guitar riff of Real American? It didn't just cue a theme, it summoned an energy. It made people rise. Cheer. Believe. So it was only fitting that WWE's next move wasn't to mourn, but to institutionalize his memory. WrestleMania 42 was announced to take place at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, Hulk Hogan's hometown. The show would be subtitled WrestleMania XLII, in memory of the